Welcome back to our generic crafting tutorial series. In this bonus episode, I'm going to go through and I'm going to show you all of the different data tables and kind of how I manage those. So if we see our item soft data and our item hard data, mostly we worked with the item soft data in this series. We didn't do pretty much anything at all with the item hard data. This is kind of if you want to store your meshes or your icons, all that good stuff. It's a little bit easier to not keep them, for me anyway, in the same data table as the soft, because the soft is all stuff that I could set via XLS or a Python script or whatever I want. The hard data is generally stuff that I cannot do that with, right? This is the script, or I should say slash script slash engine or slash whatever folder you're going to have it in. Um, icon details, etc., etc. Same thing with mesh. Same thing with item class. It's going to be all slash script stuff. And that gets pretty complicated to kind of work out in an Excel spreadsheet. And that's why I don't put that stuff inside of the soft data table. I keep them separate. So if I have like items I need to look up, I can just remake the rows inside of the hard data table and set them up that way. So I wanted to kind of go over how I work with these. When I'm making a data table here, usually the first thing I'll do is I'll go ahead and make my new data table. So we'll just make a brand new one to show, right? Show, don't tell. Of item soft data. And we'll just call this new data table is fine. And let's say I want to add an item, but I'm not really sure how to format all of this stuff inside of Excel spreadsheets or Google spreadsheets or wherever I'm doing it. I'm going to go ahead and just add in some numbers here. We'll just add in some gobbledygook. We'll add in our item type. We'll add in our crafting type. Stack size 56. Why not? Value is going to be stupidly high. This is going to be 1.65. But maybe you have an array in here, like our stats array. We're going to add in 10, 10, 10, 50, 30, 60, whatever. Equipment type, and we have other arrays in here, right? I should have said structure. So our stats is a custom structure of float values, and our arrays here are arrays. So these are the items required. So if we just say 152 and 156 and 10 and 20, um, and our enhancement level is just going to be 1, required level is just going to be 1. That's fine. So we see that we added all these values in here, right? And this is something I like to do before I start really working on my data tables. New row is going to be the same as item ID, so 65413. Save that. And now that we have this data in here, I can go ahead and export this data table. So you can export it as a CSV or a JSON. So we're just going to do this in our downloads here and just call it NDT. That was a CSV, right? We're just going to call this NDTJ or .k. And then I'm going to open them up. So I'm going to come into my downloads here and I'm going to see that I have this. And I don't know why I named that .k. This is .json. Yeah.
Power on. Optical in.
Don't mind my, don't mind that. So we have our ndt.json, and this is if you're like making a Python script, maybe you have a lot of items and you kind of want to make it based on an algorithm. You can export the JSON here, and I guess for some people this is probably a lot easier to edit and make than CSV actually is. But it'll have all of your like basic line items, so your line item 1, line item 2, line item 3, your float values in here, right? Your integer values in here. We have our stats, which is the custom structure, so it's just colon, curly brackets, and then the items, just like they are up here, are just going to be inside of the curly brackets there for each line in that custom structure. And arrays are going to be similar. You're going to open up the square brackets instead of the curly brackets, and you're just going to add in the item, comma, item. So that's one way to edit these if you want to edit all of your data table rows via a JSON. And let's go ahead and just export this as a JSON as well. And we'll call this GCG item .json. And we'll see that, we have just a huge JSON file. But this isn't too much for a Python script to poop out either. This is only 10k lines. A Python script can do this in 45 seconds or so, probably. If you're just making a ton of items and you want to do it programmatically. So a good way to kind of check and see how you want to do that. CSV though, which is what I generally work with because I'm an Excel boy. I always have been. I guess I'm a Google Sheets boy since I can't afford Microsoft anymore. Um, when we copy this out, it's going to be, you see all these commas? That's a comma separated value. That's kind of what that means. And if we want to make a new sheet, we'll add a new spreadsheet in here. Add a new sheet, and I will just take this entire line 2 here. I'm going to copy that. That way I don't have to keep flipping back and forth. You can't see both my monitors on the recorder. I'm just going to pasta that over here. Actually, I should have pasted that in line 2. My bad. And line 1 is going to get deleted. And then I'm going to take line 1 as well. And I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to pasta that into my XLX. So basically these are going to be your, I don't know why I did that in 1 again. I need to do that in 2 and 3 because, or somewhere that's not 1 and 2 because we're going to be setting up these values here. Basically you want to take this before this first comma, control copy, control pasta that into A. Same thing with item ID, control copy, control pasta that into B. So on and so forth to get all of these things properly set up. And as you can see with the example spreadsheet, which should be linked in the description of this video too, should be linked in the description of all of the videos in this series. If we just pasta that all in, we can see all those properly spread out, right? So we can see all those values in there. And it's going to be exactly the same with these, with a small exception of when we do, I believe it is here. So this is our custom structure for our stats. So if I were to pasta that in there. Oh no, it actually worked like it was supposed to. Okay. That one's fine. Maybe it was our custom structure for our arrays. Let's make sure that we got it from comma to comma. Always from comma to comma. It's going to go ahead and items required. Oh, that's actually going to work like it was supposed to. But that probably isn't going to quite work. What I did instead, because you have these double quotes here, it gets a little weird when you export it. What I did with those double quotes instead was I just made a single quotation. So we do, it is 152, 156. Sorry, I'm a little blind. I gotta really lean in to see on white. I can't really see very well on white. That's why I use dark mode for everything. Yeah, I messed it up. So if you were to think like it's open parentheses 152, 156, well that's gonna make it a negative, and you don't want that. So what I do here with arrays of items is I open the little colon, first colon, apostrophe, whatever you want to call it, 152, comma, 156. And now that it has that little apostrophe in front of it, that's going to go ahead and let it work as an array. If I try to add that in with the quotation marks, there, I'm 99% sure it is just not going to work. So just something to keep in mind. And we will start looking at our actual spreadsheet now. This is the actual spreadsheet that I have attached there that comes with it, and you can see that in action, right? Apostrophe, open parentheses 1 for a single array item. And we can see that that kind of just came all the way down here. And we have multiple items, it is just apostrophe, comma, apostrophe. And with these, we didn't really have to worry about that because they have the health equal, and then everything is separated by commas inside of here. But yeah, with the double quotes, I don't think it'll actually accept that when it comes back into Unreal. Maybe it will, maybe it won't, but either way, I wouldn't want to look at double quotes all the time, so I just do this apostrophe. So something to keep in mind with our items when we do spreadsheets like this, what I did was I made basically in the thousands of items is where equipment starts, right? I made in the hundreds of items, or I wanted to make in the hundreds of items. I guess I just kind of kept going with it. But basically I just did all of the rough things, so rough and then refined, rough and then refined, rough and then refined. And that kind of helps me keep all of the numbers in order here. If you wanted to make these, again, your item ID would be iron ingot. Instead, I can see why you might want to do that, but then all of these would also have to be iron ingot. And it's, I guess, well, iron, I already spelled it wrong, right? Iron ingot. And I can see why you might want to do that, to be a little bit more descriptive. But for me, I think it's just easier to kind of categorize things by the hundreds of numbers. So maybe at some point later on, if I were to add in more stones, maybe I would make my vegetables be starting in the 300s or the 400s, or I should say my cooking items. Maybe I would actually take all of these consumables out of here, and I would make my consumables be from the 500s to the 600s or something like that. And maybe potions would be from 600s to 700s. I kind of did that with the equipment though. Equipment starts at 1,000, and weapons start at 5,000, and jewelry starts at 3,000. So just something to keep in mind is just to kind of map out how you're gonna do it before you start making the data table rows. So I can always take this, I can control X this, I can put it down here, and maybe I'm gonna make like a whole nother class of sub weapons is, I don't know, scimitars or something. I can just go ahead and make those rows 50, 50, 50, 51, 50, 52, and keep 999 down here at the bottom. And it actually won't matter even if I don't keep 999 down here at the bottom. This could be the first item if I wanted to add this, up here in front of 1. It doesn't actually matter which row of this data table is associated with it. All that matters is where you put these 3 dashes. That's going to be the data table row that Unreal takes. Um, and it doesn't have to be 1 through, exact end. It works just fine being 169 and then skipping 170 to 999, or I should say 1000. So it works just fine skipping from 170 to 1000 here. So that's something to keep in mind as well when you're making your data table, as just kind of how you want to manage that. I made this as just a default little thing to kind of help us get jump started and see how our inventory system would work. So kind of a similar thing here. This is the vendor data table, and I use the same scheme with the unique IDs for the vendors. That might be something I go in and change. We might change this to like SG Inc. or something like that, just to be a little more descriptive, since we're not going to have thousands of vendors. We're probably going to have like maybe 200, right? If we were to make a game out of this, so we might have at most 200 vendors. So it won't be too much to think of a unique ID for each of them. But if you were considering that you might have 200 vendors in your game, you probably have close to 2,000 at least lines of items, right? At the very least, you probably have 2,000 lines of items. So that's just something to keep in mind. So you can see here, this is how we did our nested array. So let's go ahead and open that up in our project real quick. I don't need this anymore. And I don't need this anymore. So our nested array for our vendors, I put them in objects, NPCs, vendor restock. We used the inventory here, array, which is an array of a custom struct. So it's an array of item ID, quantity, and enhancement level. And that's why it looks like this. It's open parentheses and then open brackets. And then every item is contained inside of its brackets, separated by commas. So we can see that in a JSON if we want. Let's call it vend. I shouldn't have closed that out. Call it vend. So if you want to see that in a JSON, it looks like this. Okay, looks like release notes. It looks like this here, where we still have our name, we still have our unique ID, and then we have our open brackets, and then we have our curly brackets for every item listed inside of that array. And then our close brackets. And in the XLS sheet, it looks like this. So it's still, so it's actually open parentheses instead of open brackets. And then every item is contained within parentheses. I know it's a bit hard to see, or it's hard to see for me anyway with the white screen. I'll probably zoom in on it for the video. But if we were to like Control X that, it's separated by a comma. If we were to Control X this, we would remove that item. Control V it, add the item, Control V it, we added another item, Control Z. So yeah, that is how you're going to do your nested array, so your nested array of custom structures here. And if you continue to nest arrays inside of custom structures, it's going to get worse and worse. So I try not to do that too much if I'm going to need it for a data table. I really didn't want to do the custom array of structures in this data table at all, but it was just something that kind of needed to happen. Otherwise, I would have an array of items, an array of quantities, and an array of enhancement levels, and that would just be honestly harder to manage, right? So that's kind of how you're going to deal with your data tables. I think a lot of you will probably be better off going to the AI and asking it to write a custom Python script if you have any kind of knowledge with Python. That's a really good thing you can do here with the JSONs. So you can just make a couple of rows, export them as a JSON, give that to the AI as an example, and have it write a script. So that takes care of this bonus video. I just kind of wanted to go through these data tables and explain how you might add on to them or adjust them. Or maybe you're just kind of new to using data tables in Unreal and you didn't know you could right click and export them as CSVs and JSONs, and kind of how you could view and use those or set them up in your own Excel sheet. Now you know. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again next time. If you're enjoying the videos so far, I urge you to join our Patreon. For just $3 a month, you'll get access to all of the videos in this series as soon as I create them. Always available on Patreon, always free, and ready to go. You'll also get a copy of the example project so you can follow along step by step with a real visual guide in the project.